Okay, hello everybody and welcome to our Mayoral Candidate Forum. I'll wait for everybody to enter. My name is John Lisbon and I'm president of Seattle Fair Growth. Our mission is to engage people citywide on issues that affect livability and sustainability. And we're excited to bring you this forum tonight. And we look forward to hearing from the candidates. But first, I'd like to thank our sponsors, Cherry Hill Community Council, Greenwood Exceptional Tree Group, Madison Miller Park Community Group, Magnolia Community Council, Morgan Community Association, Ravenna Bryant Community Association, Seattle Displacement Coalition, South Park and Georgetown Duwamish Valley Neighborhood Preservation Coalition, a mouthful, TreePack, University District Community Council, the University Small Businesses, and Wallingford Community Council. Now I'd like to take a moment to introduce our candidate. Just a note, we had a few candidates who came by sort of last minute today, so making time in their schedule, so we may go a little bit over. We had invited Lorena Gonzalez, but we have not heard from her. So, and Jessyn Farryl will be joining us momentarily. So I'll give the introduction. Jessyn is a former state legislator who has decided to vie for Seattle's top political post again. She's currently a senior vice president at Civic Ventures, a think tank, and was the former executive director of nonprofit Transportation Choices Coalition. Casey Sixkiller, is he here tonight?
Yes, he is.
Okay. Casey is currently Seattle's deputy mayor. Before his city appointment in 2020, Sixkiller served as King County's chief operating officer. He's an enrolled citizen of the Cherokee Nation. Andrew Grant Houston is currently the interim policy manager for Councilmember Teresa Mosqueda. He's a member of the Sunrise Movement and the 43rd District Democrats, among other groups. Lance Randall is the Director of Economic Development for Seed Seattle, a nonprofit community development organization. He was born in Georgia. Randall worked under a state senator and later Congressman Sanford D. Bishop Jr. He joined Seattle's Office of Economic Development in 2007 before departing in 2015. Art Langlie, not Artie, is currently the Executive Vice President of Homes, Electric, and Salvation Army Board member. We have Bruce Harrell. He's going to be here for a couple of questions and unfortunately has to leave, but we're thankful that he can be here. Bruce is a former city council president, Garfield High and University of Washington graduate. He served for 5 days in the city's top post after Ed Murray's resignation in 2017. And rounding it off today, we have Colleen Echohawk, who's the executive director of Chief Seattle Club, a nonprofit day center and human service agency supporting American Indian and Alaskan Native people. Welcome, candidates. So the questions tonight have been carefully curated by our sponsors, the sponsor groups, and after much consideration, we decided to omit questions about the homeless crisis and police funding because they probably answered that a million times in other forums. So we want to concentrate on neighborhood issues. And since our forum is just 1 hour, I'd like to take this moment to pass the baton to Mary Houseleden, who will be our moderator tonight. Mary?
Thank you so much, John. And I really appreciate all the work of this committee. They've done a lot to make this a smooth operation, along with our technical specialist, Ben Larson. Special thanks and best luck to our wonderful candidates. It's so great that you're willing to come and talk to everyone here. I know it's an exhausting process to do that. We will have this as a 3-part forum. The first part will be a series of carefully selected questions, as mentioned by John. We will then have a lightning round of yes, no. When we are doing the yes, no, we'll ask you to do yes or no simultaneously. And then each of you will have 2 minutes to answer and close, the forum. At any point when I ask the question, if the next candidate would like me to read it again, please, ask, and I'd be happy to do that. The first question is going to be targeted for Casey. So Casey, this is regarding public safety. There has been major delays in police and fire response. Property crimes do not get prompt police response. What will you do to address the severe public safety issues that are routinely happening in our community today?
Well, thank you for the question, and thanks for the opportunity to be here tonight. Look, the reality is the Seattle Police Department's down 300 cops. And that is because of decisions made by the city council over the past year to continue to whack away at the department's budget. We've lost 300 officers. 911 response times are twice what they were just a year ago, and every category of crime is up across the city. This is unacceptable for any city, let alone the city of Seattle. So I believe we need to hire back those officers. That is the best way for us, the fastest way for us, not only to address the issues that we're all experiencing in our neighborhoods, but also as an opportunity for us to begin to immediately shift the culture of policing by hiring officers that share our values and for the future of Seattle, while also investing in alternatives to policing and fixing our crisis response system, which has been underfunded for far too long.
Thank you very much, Casey, and thank you for keeping it to a minute. So we will be in the background, you guys will be timing. And if you hear a ding, it will be about 10 seconds before the end. And thank you, so we can get out of here tonight. So for the second person, let us go with Andrew.
So what I really focused on in my campaign and my proposals is 100% public safety, but that less than 50% of that is the police. What I really believe that we are dealing with right now is a lot of crises related to crimes of poverty, which have really happened due to the economic crisis related to the COVID pandemic. And because of that, if you look at the long-term effects of crime in our city, you'll actually see that since 1990, we still have a lower amount of crime being committed as compared to now today. And so what I am really emphasizing in terms of my proposals is providing alternative responses that are not simply a person with a gun. I believe that there are other ways of providing safety and also encouraging people to be able to spend more time outside in our communities. I think similar to the work that Jane Jacobs did a long time ago in New York and her activism, when we have eyes on the street, when we have individuals who are actually available to be a part of our community, that is how we establish public safety. And when we provide the resources that people need before they have to commit crimes of poverty in order to survive, then we actually reduce the amount that we have to rely on the police in the first place.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Next up, Lance.
Well, the most important part I'm going to have, most important responsibility I would have as mayor is to keep the public safe. And of course, we have to use the public safety service delivery system, which is the police department, fire department, first responders, and human services providers. They make up that delivery system. They all need to be well staffed, well funded, and well supported. So I will make sure that they are all adequately funded and supported within City Hall and outside of City Hall. But we also have to make sure that we remove officers with biases from the force before they get an opportunity to get out into the public and commit atrocities. So we will use a method called progressive discipline to do better documentation of the behavior of police officers. If you do well, you get promoted. If it appears that you're not a good employee, then we need to go ahead and remove you from the force before you commit atrocities. And then the main thing is to create partnerships with our neighborhoods, community partnerships, which is very important to make sure that the police department and the communities working together to solve crime and fight crime.
Thank you so much, Lance. All right, on to our fourth person, Art.
Thanks, and thanks for having us here tonight. Public safety is a critical service of the city, and the city's kind of lost its edge on services, which I think is something that we've missed over the years and clearly missing now. By the end of the year, we'll probably have less than 1,000 police officers in Seattle, which is a dangerous place to be. And we can tell that by the response times. Casey pointed this out, and he knows it too. Most people, I think, are recognizing that the statistics are out there. And I think it's important to use that data to understand what we need to do. We need more officers. It's going to take years to recover from the defunding that we've already done, which is essentially creating a toxic environment where we've sent police away. And it's unfortunate. We've moved away from community policing where police are in neighborhoods and are involved with our citizens. And we need to find a way to get that back. The people that hate bad cops the most are good cops. And people that choose that as a profession are important members of our community. And I think that we need to find a way to end the toxicity and bring them back and find good police officers.
Thanks
There's a lot
so
of,
much, Art. That's
is that a minute?
well, it's a minute. Sorry, it goes fast, doesn't it?
It does.
All right, it does. Thank you. So, and thank you, candidates, for letting me, briefly interject. So if you hear again the ding from Ben, you'll know you have 10 seconds left. So, Colleen. Oh, Colleen, wait a minute. You're not unmuted yet. Someone, there we go.
Got it. Well, thank you so much for having me tonight. I'm delighted to be here and have this robust discussion. Public safety is something that I have been working on for a very long time, working in downtown on the 3rd Avenue strategy, working on the 9.5 block strategy that was in 2018. And I can tell you something that is very clear from the data. More cops does not equate more public safety. It's clear. It's in the data. We've tried it before and it hasn't worked. And so what I will do as mayor is find ways to resource our communities, resource our neighborhoods, and make sure that public safety is coming directly from those neighborhoods, and then also hold the police accountable. It is true that right now our police are not answering calls, priority 1 calls. Last year, there were 221 days last year when they only responded to priority 1 and priority 2 calls. I will hold accountability all throughout the Seattle Police Department. Yes, we'll talk about, bias policing and militarized policing. That has to go, but also the responsibility back to the community. Right now, there's around 18 community police officers. That will not be the practice in an Echohawk administration. Every single officer will be a community police officer and be responsible to the community.
Thank you so much, Colleen, especially for that passionate response. Bruce, you are up next. Just wait till you get.
Thank you. So, as echoed by some colleagues, it's not just having more officers, it's having effective officers. So as we reimagine what an effective officer is without using good force, we will look at 7-minute response times. You may recall that my history is very clear. In 2016, 2017, we actually hired the most officers we've ever had in our entire history. We will continue to do that. I don't subscribe to the defund narrative in policing. We will change the culture, but we will also make sure that all neighborhoods are safe. And this goes across affluent neighborhoods, poorer neighborhoods, small business districts. Good, effective public safety is a common denominator. And you'll see under my leadership that we will change the culture, because a lot of times you recruit differently, you coach differently, you recognize them for what they are doing right. And so under my leadership, you'll not only have more effective officers, but you'll have a culture where we truly build community trust. That's going to be consistent for all neighborhoods.
Thank you so much for that. And Ben, I'm not sure, but I'm not quite hearing the ding.
Oh,
and would you yeah.
Sorry, y'all, I apologize. I'll try to make it louder and closer to the computer. Sorry about that.
Yeah. Great. All righty. Thank you. That's the first question. And since I just want to double check, John, Jessyn is not here yet.
Mary, I can confirm. I've just took a look for Jessyn, and I haven't seen her come in as I've been admitting people either.
So we're just going to start with question 2, and with that, Andrew, you'll be the first one up on that. So the next one, we're turning to neighborhood voices. In the 90s, hundreds of volunteers created 37 neighborhood plans, and the Department of Neighborhood worked in collaboration across many city departments to ensure that dozens of those projects got implemented. Since that time, the city has reduced and essentially eliminated neighborhood input and influence. What does neighborhood planning look like to you? What would you implement? You are up, Andrew.
So I actually have a specific policy point on this on my website, and it specifically talks about bringing back neighborhood plans. I am someone that, as an architect and as an urban designer, I've actually looked at Seattle, and I've done research as to how many different neighborhoods we actually have, because there are a lot of people who have very specific areas that they delineate as their own specific neighborhood. And we actually have over 140. And so because of that, I would love us to actually have plans for those specific areas, mostly because if we are actually going to see a sustainable Seattle, one that makes sure that every single neighborhood is complete, then we need to be planning at that level. With that new bringing back of neighborhood planning, I would love to have what I'm calling urban neighborhood advocates, which will be full-time city staff that are dedicated to each of these neighborhoods. And in that way, they will be directly engaging with the community and actually being that direct connection through public safety.
Thank you so much, Andrew. I did hear that this time, Ben. So, all right, Lance, you are next.
Well, the current neighborhood plans that have been done over the years need to be updated for the neighborhoods that have them. And those that don't have them, we need to make sure that we put the process in place where every neighborhood would have a neighborhood plan. In addition, when it comes to the development process, we want to make sure that these plans are presented to the developers, that they need to look at these plans. And as they begin to do their outreach to the community, they need to have a discussion with the community about the neighborhood plans in conjunction with their development plans as a way to try to come up with some agreement or some synergy of what can be done to incorporate the neighborhood plans into their development plans. This way we can make sure that the plans are not ignored, and we also put the developers in a position where they will include some of the things that the neighborhoods want in their developments, and then making sure that going forward that nothing is changed and the commitment is kept in place.
Thank you so much, Lance, for that insight. Next on to Art.
Thanks. So probably about a decade ago, Seattle went from being a community that did team sport politics to being cage match politics, and we need to blow the whistle on the cage match. There's an awful lot of community groups in this town. There is no question. And we need to make sure that all of them are represented in these plans. I'll harken back to Norm Rice, who did the education summit and was able to canvass essentially the entire city to get that feedback. And it's important that every part of this community is represented when it comes to these kind of issues. And the good news is I think there is that infrastructure, that there are community groups for just about everywhere. And I think all of us as candidates know that because we've seen questionnaires and questions coming through from every community. We just need to make sure that their representation is heard. I'm not sure that's been the case over the last decade or so. I think it's been a move ahead without that much community input, and we need to stop that.
Thank you so much, Art. And
I nailed it.
You guys are really nailing it in terms of hitting the 1 minute mark. Next up, Colleen.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. And I am really excited about neighborhood plans, but I also have concerns about them. I think that we need to be ensuring that equity is at premium with neighborhood plans. I think in past neighborhood planning, there have been communities that have been left out of the process. And so we need to be really cautious about it as we go forward, but it doesn't mean we should let it stop us. I think we have to have leadership that shows that equity means that we provide food and childcare and understand that our neighborhoods have so much to offer us that we are not asking them to bring their knowledge without understanding that they should be leading the process. I think that we need to reimagine Department of Neighborhoods a little bit. We need to be thinking about getting neighborhood coordinators into every single neighborhood, and that they are part of the neighborhood, and then resourcing the neighborhoods. I think our neighborhoods have a lot to give to our city. They should be a part of the development that happens in our community, and that's going to require a lot of neighborhood coordination to ensure that those neighborhoods are at the forefront, helping lead the process as we move forward.
Thank you so much, Colleen. Next up, Bruce.
Thank you. So my director of the Department of Neighborhoods will be evaluated on how thorough and how comprehensive, thorough, and effective the outreach will be. So you'll see measurements in place, such as how much outreach was done, not just how many emails, but the substance of them. They will be quantified and qualified such that we and myself can measure the effectiveness. We will put structure around our neighborhood planning. We'll put structure around things such as block watches and public safety measures. When I moved in my current neighborhood around 10, 11 years ago, my wife and I knocked on doorbells everywhere to start a block watch party as an example. So what I envision is building neighborhoods, building stronger neighborhoods, but putting resources in the Department of Neighborhoods such that their outreach, the input of neighborhoods, activists, people who care about this city as much as you and I have input that is measured. So that's how we'll go out making sure it is effective.
Thank you so much, Bruce. And then finally, we have Casey for question 2.
Well, thanks. Look, our neighborhoods are the special sauce of Seattle. In fact, it's, getting active in my own neighborhood, which led me into a career in public service and public policy. So I feel really strongly, though, that the link between our neighborhoods and the decision-making of the city has really been strained, if not broken, over the last 10 years. And we've got to really, to me, it's about partnership. We need to create more opportunities for our neighborhoods to be at the table, co-designing programs and co-designing services that are coming back into their neighborhoods. Because at the end of the day, our neighborhoods are the ones that know what is best and what the gaps are and what the service gaps are, or investments that are needed to support the quality of life in those neighborhoods, not just today, but for future generations. So I think it's about, number one, making our neighborhoods a priority, understanding that there are many voices. Let's get them to the table, and let's be focused on action, 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 and putting money behind it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Casey. And just a quick check, Bruce. We heard that you might be needing to leave because you had another engagement at the end of this. If that's the case, I just want to thank you very much for coming for the time that you did have. I know you candidates are very busy.
Thank you. And just for the viewers, I did make a closing statement. It was taped earlier, so I hope you have a chance to watch that, and maybe I'll get your support. Thank you very much. I'm sorry I have a conflict, but I must go. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Bruce. And just for everybody, just a little echo, you will have the recording will be up in Seattle Fair Grove after this session. All right, so next up will be Lance, and it is question number 3. We hear a lot about affordability without a definition. What is your plan to ensure that the half of our neighbors who make less than $50,000 can afford to stay in Seattle?
Well, one of the questions that I've been asking quite often when we talk about affordable housing is who exactly are we building affordable housing for? And we need to make sure we answer that question on all levels based on people's incomes. But in order to make affordable housing available for those in the middle who are being left out, I think it's important to begin to focus more of our energy and resources on commercial property owners who can develop smaller developments of 20 units or more. So that we can provide affordable housing for that middle class. Because when you build the larger developments, the debt service is extremely high and you have to pay that debt. But if you allow property owners to build smaller developments of 20 units or less, the debt service is much cheaper, which means that the rent could be more affordable, keep the integrity of the neighborhoods, and those in the middle can afford to rent those particular dwelling places.
Thank you so much there, Lance. Okay, so next up is going to be Art.
Well, Lance is right on that. Right now we've got a single family home spike in Seattle, and it's the demand. And I would guess that over a little bit of time, if things continue here, the demand will go down and the price will go down. But what we haven't done yet is reimagine what housing looks like in Seattle. And one of the things that we're good at here is actually redeveloping new plans and coming up with new processes and new designs. And I think Ace would probably agree with me on this, that we have some of the greatest design firms in the world in Seattle, and we ought to be able to figure out a building design that will accommodate different age groups and different styles of living that will be affordable to people. Because right now we're stuck in a classic example of how we're expecting people to live. And I think there are ways to come up with new things to where my 23-year-old needs a certain thing, whereas a 45-year-old with a couple of kids needs something different. And that's the way we make it affordable.
Thank you so much, Art. All right, next up, Colleen.
I really agree with you, Art, on that one. I have been working in this space for a long time. I have been building affordable housing, and I can tell you that the way that we're currently going, we will never catch up. We have to reimagine. We have to think about different kinds of housing and also different ways that we fund housing. Sorry, there's somebody loud on my street out here, but the reimagining housing, we don't see enough leadership from the Black, Indigenous, and people of color communities. They have some brilliant ideas out there that have not been heard. So that's one way that I think will be really exciting as we move forward. We also need to be working with our national leaders. We do have a friend in the White House. This is a time for us to get very aggressive about going after every dollar, working with new HUD Secretary Marcia Fudge. We also need to make sure that we have jobs that are going to work for our working families. Working families deserve to live here. Our teachers deserve to live here. And for me, we have to be thinking about deeply affordable housing, 30% and under AMI. That's my definition. I look forward to partnering with all of you to do it. This is something that's exciting, and we have to have vision and focus and get it done and quit just talking about it.
Thank you so much, Colleen. All right, Casey.
Well, thanks for the question. Obviously, it's a really important issue that's on top of many people's minds across our city. I just say, simply, it is a complex issue that requires not a one-size-fits-all approach. I've been pretty clear throughout this campaign that I oppose just universally throwing out single-family zoning across our city. I think that's a very divisive way to go about addressing an issue that of creating more housing choice across Seattle. I think our housing affordability strategy has to start with preserving the housing that we have, and making sure that small landlords and others for whom that housing was providing an opportunity not just to stay in Seattle, but also creating opportunities for families like mine who can't afford to buy a house in Seattle to still own a home that works for my family. The second thing is we need to fine tune the programs that are working, that we have in place now. MHA is a really good example. It is collecting more money in the housing levy, but it's not creating the housing in place that it's supposed to be doing. So we need to go back and fix that. And the third thing is we got to create jobs that can actually pay people to afford to live in this ever increasingly more expensive city.
Thank you so much, Casey. And Jessyn, thank you so much for joining us. So we are currently on the question tree. I will read it for you so that you can also start to answer things.
Great.
So we hear a lot about affordability without a definition. What is your plan to ensure that half of our neighbors who make less than $50,000 can afford to stay in Seattle?
And how long do I have?
You have 1 minute.
1 minute. Okay, well, I'll just say great. Oh.
I just want to let you know it's being timed. So we will give you a little warning when you have 10 seconds left.
Excellent. Well, first of all, a huge thank you to everyone for hosting this event, and my apologies for being a little late. This is the season of multiple events on every evening. So housing affordability is a core issue for my campaign. I'm Jessyn Farryl, running for mayor, of course. And I am proposing 70,000 units of affordable housing. And that is based on King County's number for what the gap of affordability is. And that is, of course, a number that includes the 3,500 units of permanent supportive housing that we need to build all the way up into the missing middle. But that band of folks who are making 50,000 and under are really important. And there are 3 core strategies that I'm interested in: new pathways to homeownership through community land trusts, social housing, massively scaling up the social housing that we have in our community, as Vienna has done so well, as well as making sure that we have identified buildings that are specific, that are already affordable, that will not be torn down or changed. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And I didn't mark, Andrew, that you spoke, but I believe you spoke.
I did not.
Oh, okay. Then I was correct in answering the question. So if you could now answer that question as well.
Yes. So I really want to get to the heart of your question, which is how do we provide housing for those who are making less than $50,000 a year? So those individuals are, in essence, making less than 50% of the area median income, specifically because the average income in Seattle has now crossed $100,000. And so to be very clear and direct about how we do that, it's 2 ways in my mind. One is we need to actually just put more funding into providing for affordable housing. And the way that I'm focused on doing that is through what I'm calling a just transition tax, which would put $100 million into the Equitable Development Initiative. So specifically, Black, Indigenous, and other communities of color can self-determine and self-develop their own permanently affordable housing projects. The second thing that we must do is actually end exclusionary zoning. And the reason for that we must do that in order to provide housing at the lowest levels, is because the federal government has already stated that they are interested in ending exclusionary zoning across the US, and they will provide direct funding through community development block grants in order to make it happen.
Thank you so much, Andrew. All right, so next up we have question 4, and we will start with Art answering that. Now, we'll consider zoning as one tool. How will changing single-family zoning to neighborhood residential zoning create new low-income rental housing? Or is this a change in name only, as promised by the sponsor, Teresa Mosqueda? So for you, Art.
Yeah, I'm kind of unclear on exactly what she's trying to do with that, to be honest with you. Single family zoning in Seattle will continue. I don't think that we're going to do away with it. I think there are things that we need to do, as I said in the last answer, which is to re-envision how housing comes about. But in my neighborhood, for instance, we've had a number of ADUs come into play where some of them have been good, some of them have not been good. And we need to really do that kind of planning to figure out how we can bring multiple family members into certain single family areas and not make it atrocious, which in my neighborhood, as I say, there was a bad one. I think that, as I said, the number of design moves that we need to make in order to come up with housing for different groups and different age groups mainly is something that we need to look at closely. And if we can't do that, we're not going to be able to accommodate everybody in this community, because we are landlocked and we don't have another patch of desert to take for another group of single family homes. So we need to come up with an alternate plan.
Great, thank you so much. All right, next up, Colleen. Well, we have to wait till you get.
Would you mind asking the question again? I wasn't sure I got it.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
We're gonna stop that. So now we'll consider zoning. It's just one of the tools. How will changing single family zoning to neighborhood residential zones create new low income rental housing? Or is this a change in name only?
Yeah, the way that I'm thinking about this is a first step. We have to make the step and actually get this done. You know, Seattle is a city that has been talking about climate change for a long time. If we really believe that we're going to have to, and we really believe that we want to change, we're going to have to make these changes, and zoning is a part of this. My plan is calling for more duplexes, triplexes, and fourplexes all over the city, apartments that are in scale to the neighborhood. And, you know, this isn't new to Seattle. If you go to Magnolia or you go to Laurelhurst, you will see mixed housing. We need to legalize that again and take seriously the reality of climate change that is upon us. I don't know about the rest of you, but I've got new air filters in my house, getting ready for the smoke season that is upon us. We have to do this. We have to take these first steps and continue to reimagine it as we go, and evaluate it and change.
Thank you so much, Colleen. Jessyn, you are up next.
Okay, thank you. So the way I really think about this question is that all of our housing decisions should be driving towards racial justice, towards housing stability for every single person in our community, and for reducing climate emissions. And making sure that the broad, that the broad community, that every neighborhood in our city has housing diversity in it. In other words, doing away with single family zoning is really important, but it is not the only step. As we learned with the good work that was done to make ADUs available to build, we didn't do the work around making them affordable. So the financing piece is really important. The way we are creating affordability, whether it's through ownership or stability in other ways, that matters. Subsidizing infrastructure really matters. And also the way we integrate the environment. And the great news is that there are fabulous examples across the city of density that has both economic diversity and better environment. I think of Thornton Creek. I think of High Point and New Holly as great examples of economic diversity. And anywhere in Seattle before 1923, the places we love most, Fremont, Columbia City.
Jessyn, sorry.
Housing diversity, no problem.
So
The
just trying to
timekeeper
keep
job
us
is
all on
hard.
track here, not trying to be rude here.
Fair
But
enough.
thank you for that passionate response again. So now we're going to start with Casey.
Okay, well, thanks for the question. I will just also echo that I don't entirely certain what Councilmember Mosqueda is trying to accomplish, but I think she's using new semantics to try to go after the same thing, and that is to end single family zoning across Seattle. And again, as I said just a moment ago, I don't agree with that approach. I don't think a one size fits all zoning, rezoning of the entire city is going to get us to where we need to go. Because the fact is, even as we've, create, I don't think unchecked development actually has the positive impact that we want. I agree there are places where that development of missing middle housing has worked and is helping to create more opportunities for folks to find a home in Seattle, but it also has contributed to gentrification and pushing folks out, including in our historic BIPOC areas. So we need to be very methodical and thoughtful about how we go about doing this, but agree that we need to find and upzone areas where it makes sense near transit centers and underutilized commercial corridors.
Thank you so much for that. And up next, Andrew.
So I can answer this question as the former interim policy manager for Councilmember Mosqueda and say that, yes, this is a change in name only. However, what it is recognizing is that many of our single family only neighborhoods already have existing duplexes, fourplexes, and small apartments. These existed before the changes that were made in 1923, as acknowledged by another colleague of mine who is here this evening. And it's recognizing that we are going back to that in order to start the conversation in our major comprehensive plan is how we need to move back to allowing multifamily and small residential duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes, courtyard apartments in all of our neighborhoods. Casey brought up a really great point about gentrification. The reason that we have the gentrification and displacement that we have in historically Black and Brown communities is because there is such a huge demand of housing in our city. However, we have only allowed for development and for new apartments to go in very specific areas that happen to be historically redlined areas. And so if we actually want to accommodate all the people who want to live in the city, we need to spread the demand. And when we do that, we will see small amounts of change in all of our neighborhoods, change that is gradual, slow, and similar to how people change over time, very natural.
Thank you so much. All right, up next is Lance with the final person for this question.
Yeah, thank you. So I think whatever changes we make when it comes to zoning, we need to make sure we prioritize to make sure we're creating a good, diverse stock of rental and sale housing options. And we need to take a look at staggered residential zoning where density limits are responsive to the site conditions, land values, and desired incomes of the neighborhoods. But in addition, we need to make sure we create more flexibility within the single family zone, such as reducing the minimum lot size and block ends and establishing more opportunities for land trust models. And of course, creating partnerships between landowners and levy funds, because the most important thing that I think everyone is concerned about is we want to make sure that people can build wealth and avoid displacement in these neighborhoods. Everyone should be able to live in whatever neighborhood they so desire and be able to do it affordably.
Thank you so much, Lance. All right, so that ends question 4. On to question 5, and we will start with Colleen this time. So displacement is a major concern. 23% of single family homes in Seattle are rentals. Since for-profit developers are building almost exclusively studios and one-bedroom apartments, large multi-generational families have no other option than renting a single family home. Many older rental homes are the targets of multifamily development. What would you do to avoid displacing these families? Colleen.
Oh, such a good question, and something that I'm deeply concerned about. I am a member of the American Indian Service Commission, and we're redeveloping a spot in the International District, and a priority of ours is 2 and 3 bedrooms. And so as mayor of the city, I will be working with the Equitable Development Initiative to make sure that we are funding organizations to build out the kind of housing that works for families that need to have, 2 or 3 bedrooms. If you have a family of, 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, 6 kids, you need to have a space that works for them. And so Seattle needs to be better and more clear about building out diverse housing that works for communities that have larger families. I would look forward to working with some of the groups that are already doing it. And then one thing that's really clear is we have to change the way the funding works for some of this affordable housing. Our LIHTC, a low-income housing tax credit allotment is not nearly enough. And then we cannot only rely on that as well. We have to find other ways to fund this housing as we move forward and get very serious about it and stop just talking about it and actually get it done.
Thank you so much, Colleen. All right, let us move on to Jessyn. You are now number 2 for the question.
Thank you for this question. And this is such a huge issue for people living in Seattle now, but also what unfolded in Southeast Seattle and the central area over the last 15, 20 years is really a tragedy as well. And so one of the things I'm running on this idea, ST3 for housing, which is, again, as I referenced, the need to build 70,000 units across the city, but particularly as we are delivering light rail on the west side of the city, we need to learn from the mistakes of building light rail on the east side. And that means specifically that we need to be working now to provide people who live in those communities with pathways to ownership by partnering with the great community land trusts that we have in our city. It means we need to be identifying those buildings that need to be preserved as long-time affordable housing. And as I said before, it means we also need to be scaling up those other ideas for making housing more affordable, whether it is low barriers to building affordable ADUs or social housing, et cetera. But fundamentally, we need to be planning, and we need to be aggressively planning right now because people are being displaced. And as we're delivering light rail, unfortunately, what has gone with that in the past is gentrification, and we need to stop that.
Thank you so much for that answer. So next is Casey.
Okay, well, thank you again for the question. Again, I just think we have to be very careful here as we move forward. Again, we need more housing choices, but what we need to make sure that we are not inadvertently, through our policy decisions and our investments and our land use policy, turning neighborhoods that are currently affordable into unaffordable neighborhoods. Our efforts need to first be focused on preserving our current housing stock and doing more to support BIPOC families at risk of displacement. And as I said earlier, fine-tuning existing programs so they're getting the housing production and affordability we want. MHA is a program that is generating, overperforming the housing levy right now, but it's not creating the affordable housing on site and in those areas that are generating that revenue. The second is that our policy should support the ability for families to hold onto their homes and build intergenerational wealth, age in place, or just earn a supplemental income that they need in order to stay in Seattle.
Thank you so much, Casey. All right, Andrew, you're up next.
So I think it's important to highlight with this question that what you're really talking about is rentals, because many individuals who do have families simply cannot enter into trying to purchase a single family home because the average asking price now is over $1 million. And so in order to really provide family-sized units for rentals, and I can talk about my own experience as someone who was raised by a single parent and has lived in apartments my entire life, that what we should be focusing on is recognizing that the market currently is providing those studios and those one bedrooms, which are what are being used for people who are moving here. And so what the city should be focused on is really saying, if the market is not taking care of family-sized units, then we should be the people actually providing those units. So that is what I would be focused on.
Thank you so much, Andrew. Let us go next to Lance to answer that question.
Like I mentioned earlier, it's important to have more flexibility in the single family zoning and do things like reducing the minimum lot size of block ends and establishing more opportunities for land trust models. Because the name of the game is we want to try to help people build wealth and limit displacement. But in doing so, we need to make sure that once we are able to help people through policy change, be able to purchase more affordable housing or even rent more affordable housing, it's important for us to make sure they have access to the other amenities like schools and open space and public safety. But another thing, we have to make sure that we have programs in place. I like what Congresswoman Maxine Waters is looking at is to create a big fund that will be able to provide down payments for people across the country to be able to purchase new homes. Something that we need to look at from the state perspective and also from the local perspective, and able to help people to pay the down payments that they need. I know we have something already on the state, but we need to escalate it and add more to it. $55,000 is not quite enough. You need at least triple that in order to be able to buy an affordable home.
Thank you so much, Lance. So we have a last Art for that question.
Thanks. Yeah, so as a contractor, I work off of good data. And like Casey, I like to look at these things and decide, what we're going to build and how we can afford it. So I think it's really important that we, again, look at what we need and how we get there. And I think public-private partnerships are a way to do that. I think there's a way to get contractors involved and get that funding involved to make sure that we're able to allow multi-generational housing to continue, because that's an important part of our very diverse community. Again, I'm also not in favor of taking over single-family zone neighborhoods with these, but there's a lot of opportunity to create buildings within single-family zoning that works for multi-generational families.
Thank you very much for that. So I'm just going to, for one moment, ask someone from the committee. So we are now at 6:49. If we want to get through the lightning round and the 2-minute close, do you guys want to stop and go to that, or should we have one more question?
I would ask the candidates if they have time for that.
Yeah, so we could go longer if people are willing.
I have a conflict at like 7:10. I need to step off.
Okay, others people expecting to leave at 7:15, I'm thinking.
Yeah, I have to leave at about the same time as Colleen.
Okay.
As do I. I suspect we're all going to the next thing.
Yes. Okay. So I think we're going to start our next part of the program here, which is our yes, no. And so what we're asking for you to do all simultaneously on the screen is just to say yes or no to these questions. And then after we finish that, we have 10 of those questions. We will go to your closing statements. All righty, for the first one, regarding mandatory housing affordability, or MHA, it's not working as intended because only 2% of projects include low-income housing on site rather than the goal of 50%. Rather than allowing developers to pay a low fee to opt out, would you support raising the fees so that more affordable units are included on site? Yes or no? Oh, okay, I see Andrew, and then Casey, I don't see yours yet. Yep, yeah, okay, everyone said yes. Question number 2, will increased market rate housing development in Seattle improve housing affordability? Yes or no? You see Colleen is down, Jessyn is down, Casey's down, Art is up, Lance is up, and Andrew is up. Thank you. Question number 3. Are there any affordable homes for sale in Seattle? Yes or no?
Define affordable.
As you would define it. So yes or no?
No.
I know there's actually a 60% AMI project that's being developed right now for permanently affordable housing for ownership. So yes.
There you go.
But
Good
Lance is
job.
saying yes. Okay. All right, thank you so much on that. Number 4, does ridding Seattle of single-family zoning by itself cause displacement and gentrification? Yes or no?
Cause it?
And there's no.
I think I followed you.
No. And Casey, I don't know what you said.
Can you read the question again? I was having a hard time following.
Yeah, okay, so I'll slow down just a little bit. Does ridding Seattle of single-family zoning by itself cause displacement and gentrification? Yes or no? I see no.
Yeah.
Arthur is saying yes, Lance is saying yes, and Andrew's saying no, and Casey's saying yes. Thank you. All right, here's number 5. Seattle is well known for pioneering the concept of urban villages and urban centers, defined as places with multiple frequent transit within a 10-minute walk. Seattle then committed to locating investments such as libraries, senior centers, and community centers where the most people would have access. Do you support urban villages and transit-oriented development as a core planning principle for increasing density while maximizing access to transit? A yes or no? Okay, Lance is yes, Casey's yes. Colleen is all right, and Jessyn is no, and Andrew is no. And Colleen, what's your answer? No, okay. These are tough questions, you know. Oftentimes questions are it's always, it depends. All right, question number 6. Seattle has more dogs than children, with only 14 off-leash dog parks. Would you support a goal of a dog park within walking distance of every urban center or village, or make complete neighborhoods? Yes or no? Yes, yes, yes. And Lance is thinking about it. Yes. Okay. So yep, you know, that's an opportunity for a good thing for the animals and individuals. Oh, sorry, I was being political there. I'll try not to do that. The next question. In the University District, Rob Johnson promised not to raise the height limits on the Ave. Will you as mayor promise to protect a Seattle institution and its small businesses by not upzoning the Ave? Yes or no? Lance is up, Arthur's up.
I'm
Casey's
not
up.
making that promise.
No, she's not making a promise. No, thank you. Any answer is fine by us, you know. It's your
Jessyn, that's a hot mic moment. Careful.
No, I was very well aware that I was on mic.
Thank you. All right, question number 8. After the 2017 rezoning of the U District to a 320-foot rise urban center, do you support retaining the pedestrian core of our main shopping street of the Ave at its current mid-size zone height? Yes or no? Art is yes, Jessyn's yes, Casey.
I don't understand.
Okay, everyone's a yes. Thank you. Question 9. Will you incorporate genuine representational community input into the massive redevelopment of our city? Yes or no? Yes, yes, everybody, yep. Very much a Seattle politician group here. And number 10, South Park is a low-income neighborhood of single-family homes cherished by its ethnic diversity. Will you commit to protecting South Park from encroachment by its industrial neighbors? Yes or no? Yes. Sounds like yes for everyone. Thank you so much. That was a quick round. Now for the final segment, we are going to go to a 2-minute wrap up. And I will let me quickly set my timer here for that. And let's see. How about if we start, we'll just start at the top of the list. Casey.
All right. Well, thank you so much for the opportunity to have been here tonight to answer these questions. I have to say, those were the most complex yes or no questions I think any of us have faced over the course of the campaign. Those of you who don't know me, just to kind of recap, you know, I grew up in Seattle and I went to the East Coast to go to school, worked in the House and the Senate of the United States Congress, and moved home a few years ago to become the Chief Operating Officer of King County, where I managed the day-to-day of the 12th largest county in the country. During this past year, I helped manage the city through a global pandemic as deputy mayor, setting up services to support vulnerable families and maintain basic city services and rapidly scale testing and nation-leading vaccination efforts that now have a fully reopened economy and families reunited with each other and friends and going out to dinner again and finally getting back to some sense of normalcy. In addition to all of that, I am raising 3 young kids in a city that is very different than the one that I grew up in. One that is now powered by technology rather than aerospace. But now more than ever before, we are facing a number of challenges. Then, unfortunately, many challenges that we've been trying to solve for a long time. Seattle's a mess, from the conditions of our parks to the widening income and opportunity gap to just feeling safe as we walk down the street. We seem to have forgotten about who we are, and what's worse, our residents don't feel like we have any way to fix it. That's why I'm running for mayor. I know we can do better. It is time for new elected leadership that isn't afraid to tackle tough issues and make decisions. This cannot be a race to see who was a better council president. Our city deserves more than a rebranding of failed council policies or a reboot of an unremarkable council career. Now is our opportunity to build back a stronger Seattle that works for everyone, and to come forward with just focusing on getting back to the basics of solving the issues that we experience as we walk out our door every day. So I appreciate the opportunity to be here today. I need your vote to get through the primary, to have an opportunity to chat more with the city about the future in the general election. So thank you, and please check me out at sixkiller4seattle.com.
Thank you so much for those closing comments. Andrew, you're up next.
Thank you, Mary, and thank you everyone for having us this evening. I know that we may not agree on what the solutions are that we should move forward with. However, I think something that we do agree on are the problems that we are facing right now. And for myself, as someone who moved here specifically to be a part of the housing solution and try and design and build housing in this city, part of the reason why I'm running in the first place is because it has been so hard to try and be a part of that solution. And I believe that once we really fix our systems, we will be able to solve all of our crises, those affecting us through affordability, through homelessness, through our economic crisis, and most importantly, through our climate crisis. It is something where I look to not only our city as a place that is preventing more housing from happening and dealing with homelessness, but it's the same issue that many other high-cost cities are going through. San Francisco, San Jose, Los Angeles, Austin, Nashville, Denver. There is this continuation where they simply are saying yes, yes, yes to jobs, but no, no, no to housing. And so I want to be the mayor to finally act and finally provide the housing that we need at every single level of affordability. And that has been recognized by community. That is why I have raised more democracy vouchers than any other candidate. It's why I'm endorsed by the Transit Writers Union, by 350 Seattle Action, by the Sunrise Movement, Washington High School Hubs, and by the national organization Run for Something. So I hope that you will vote for me in this primary, recognizing that we have had career politicians and lawyers as our mayor for the past 2 terms, and we have not seen the success that we need in order for all Seattleites to thrive. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Andrew. Up next is Lance.
So the city of Seattle is facing some challenges, but I believe we can overcome our challenges with a leader that has a vision, plan to solve problems, and can work in bringing people together to produce results. And I'm ready to be that leader for Seattle. My experience over 30 years, I'm a political scientist, economic development practitioner, entrepreneur, and a musician. I've held leadership positions on the federal government level, state level, and municipal government in 2 different states and 2 different municipalities. My background and experience makes me very unique for this position at the time to bring this new leadership and new ideas and new solutions in order for us to go forward as we come out of the pandemic. Because around the country, we're looking for a model city of effectiveness, sustainability, and equity, and accountability to all of its citizens. And Seattle can be that model, but we have to leverage our creativity. We have to leverage our ability to live freely and create and prosper. So I want to bring to City Hall the skills that I've used over the years as economic development and an economic development practitioner and a politician to make sure that we come together, the mayor's office and city council working together to solve the problems that the city needs us to solve. I am not one way or the other. I'm a candidate who's down the middle, but I can work with both sides. And I think it's important to be able to have a leader that can work with both sides and while dealing with the differences, always find the common ground to make sure we're doing the right things for the city. So I'm ready for this position. I solicit your support, and I hope you consider me for the next mayor of Seattle. I may not have the name recognition. I may not have the big pockets like Andrew, but I have more work recognition around the city. I've worked in every neighborhood and have had a profound impact on this city. So you judge your leader by what they've done before going into office, and then you know what to expect when they get in office.
Thank you so much, Lance. All right, on to Art.
Well, thanks for having us. I really appreciate it. I am also a lifelong Seattleite. The furthest east I ever went was Walla Walla. That's the only zip code outside of Seattle I've lived in, and it was not for the penitentiary. Our city really faces tough challenges that have only become more difficult to solve. Our homelessness emergency is getting worse. Downtown is deteriorating. People feel unsafe. Roads and bridges need repairs, and no current city leader is taking responsibility, including top contenders for the mayoral position that have been there for years. We can't afford to have more of the same well-intended but untested and expensive policies that fail and make problems worse. I'll take Seattle in a different direction. I have the experience and the ability to bring talented people together to develop smart solutions for our most pressing problems. Through the last 30 years as a business leader and a lifetime of philanthropic service, I've proven my ability to evaluate a problem thoroughly, build a team, and develop effective solutions, implement them, and measure outcomes. I'm ready to be the change maker that our city needs on day one. I'm the only candidate who acknowledges, although I heard Casey kind of change this today, the importance of refocusing City Hall to do their most basic job, which is bringing services back to the people. That's the role of the city. We need responsible budgeting and repairs of the infrastructure and a plan to end our homeless emergency through compassionate solutions and to restore public safety. You can check me out at artlangley.com, and I appreciate your support.
Thank you so much, Art. And Colleen, you're up next.
Well, thank you so much, friends out there. I am so glad to get to be with you and share a little bit about my life and why I think I would be the best mayor for our city. You know, I'm an enrolled member of the Pawnee Nation of Oklahoma. My dad found his way out to Alaska working on the Trans-Alaska Pipeline, and I grew up in rural Alaska. Very, very different from where I live now. But when I was 16 years old, we visited Seattle, and I remember looking at Seattle and thinking, this is my place. I was not born here. I chose to live here because of the kind of community that this is and the kind of wonderful city that this is. I am resigned recently from the Chief Seattle Club. I've been serving our homeless community for the past 7 years. I've been building affordable housing. I have $180 million of projects out there to house our community. We have to change the way that we've been doing housing. We've got to get more housing into our communities, and we've got to do it in partnership with our neighborhoods. Neighborhoods are the lifeblood of the city. I love my neighborhood. I live in North Greenwood / Bitter Lake, and I love what my neighborhood brings to me and what I can offer our neighborhoods as well. You know, we have a crisis of homelessness. We have to be clear about this. I am your candidate that will ensure that we are serving the people who are experiencing homelessness in our neighborhoods and bring them into housing and security. I have a 22-point plan to bring everyone inside in 14 months. It's a solid, concrete plan that's based on real experience. And I am running because we have let this go on for far too long. Our neighborhoods are suffering. We have to do better. I'm also excited to offer some skills of having served on the Pioneer Square Preservation Board. I'm a board member of the National Low Income Housing Coalition. And as leader of the city, I will start a new commission that addresses the gentrification and displacement in the city and take it seriously and get the work done. Finally, I've been taught in my life to be a servant leader, to be someone who steps up to the plate when there is work that needs to be done. I'll get in there, I'm gonna hustle for this city, and I'm delighted to earn your vote. Check us out at echohawkforseattle.com.
Thank you so much, Colleen. All right, and Jessyn, you're gonna bring us home for the last 2-minute segment.
Okay, well, thank you so much for hosting us this evening, Mary. Thank you for such great moderating. I am Jessyn Farryl. I would love to earn your support. And I'm running for mayor because this is really a moment for us to get off the sidelines. And we know that housing affordability is one of the core issues facing our city. That is why I'm committing to 70,000 units of affordable housing that we need to be building across the city in every neighborhood. But the vision matters, the values matter, and so do the details. And that's why I have such a broad array of support, particularly on this issue, whether it is some people who are here tonight, like Sarah Jane Siegfried and Representative Jerry Paulette, whether it is people in the urbanist and development community like Patience Malaba and Ron Scher, and whether it is people who are fighting for racial justice and against displacement in our community like Dominic Davis and Andrea Capane. And that is because this is a moment where we need to turn words into action. We need leaders who are able to build bridges, literally, of course, but also figuratively. And we need to stop patting ourselves on the back for incrementalism. This is a moment where we need to scale our solutions to the size of the problem, whether we are concerned about the homelessness crisis, climate change, racial equity, transportation, livability, economic development. Housing is an issue that touches all of those things, and I hope you will learn more about the specifics of my plan by going to my website. But again, this is a moment where we need leaders who are able to bring folks to the table, but then actually deliver. We know we do a lot of process in this city, and process absolutely matters, but so does action. And so I am committed to that. I am, again, grateful for being able to have this conversation tonight, and I look forward to earning your support. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And candidates, I am so impressed. We have so many passionate, well-informed, and people willing to do public service. So thank you for stepping it up. You're a good example of what's the best of Seattle. And so I will now turn this over to John to bring us home.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you very much. You did a great job. And I want to thank Ben as well, a relation to you, for his great job as technician. We couldn't have done it without you. I want to thank the candidates for showing up today. We really appreciate it. I personally know how hard it can be to run at times and how exhausting it can be. So we're so happy you're here, and you did a great job. So we now, I think the audience here has a good idea of your policies, and this has been very helpful for everybody, and hopefully helpful for making a decision. And hopefully we have somebody here who will be the next mayor, because this city is really changing. We know it. I've been here over 20 years and it's changing very fast, and it'll continue to change fast. And the next mayor is going to be critically important to Seattle. So let's give these candidates a big hand, a big virtual hand.
Hey.
Everybody's muted, but okay. And I want to wish you all a great night. And just a reminder that this forum was recorded, and you can get a copy at seattlefairgrowth.org. Thank you very much, and have a great night.
One other thing, John, is just, again, we want to give a special shout out to the sponsors and their collaboration with the committee, to help us put this forum on. And I hope there's a lot more of these.
How can I forget? Thank you very much. And that concludes our forum. Good night.
Good night. Thank you.